Did you want to talk anything else about Bell?
I did, man. Because obviously we're gonna dive into it a lot more, even when TG comes on as well. But yeah, I did want to talk about it initially, though, man, because we obviously heard some of those comments, more so surrounding why he was leaving, and it was actually funny, man. Him having his comments, and then I don't know if you saw Arthur Milet and some of the posts that he was having, how people were kind of making a deal about that, but it really just stems back to the business side of football and how everybody has handled it. When you talk L. Bell, you hear him talk about what he thought was deemed as petty by him in terms of forcing the out because they wouldn't come down on some of the guarantees. And he's like, man, I'm doing all this for you. You won't even budge on these type of things. So it ultimately makes you start to resent that team in negotiations. Y'all have heard me talk about this before, and I laugh about it, but I'm like, that really does, when you're in them negotiations, man, it will make you be like, yo, I hate this team. I hate this organization. I hate everybody that it represents management, because that is the stuff that really goes on. And you're like, you telling me I'm valuable. You telling me that you need me and I'm producing and you're playing me. But at the same time, behind closed doors, you're telling me I'm not going to pay you. I don't need you. I can go draft another guy. I can go sign another guy. So with all of that, man, it just, at times it gets personal. And for L. Bell, it does sound like he did make it personal, but that's ultimately when you hear him talk about what he regrets out of it is once he left and went to another organization, you start to just realize, like, money aside, because we said, okay, you won in terms of more guarantee, but you lost in terms of potential long-term earnings here in Pittsburgh, legacy here in Pittsburgh, winning. We get all that. But just in the simple fact of when you go to that next organization, and he talked about Adam Gase. It's like, bro, it took me 3 weeks to realize, like, yo, the head coach matters. I'm there with Adam Gase, and like, yo, this isn't it. But he's homegrown in Pittsburgh, and a lot of times I would joke with TG and a lot of guys about that.
AB's another good example.
Yeah, we joke about all these guys. We're like, all the homegrown guys, you take it for granted because you've never experienced another organization. You don't know what it's like to have coaches lie to you. You don't know what it's like to have a GM that'll be shady to you. You don't know what that's like until you leave and you think that everything is like Pittsburgh. And when we come from outside, how many guys you think come from outside? We're like, yo, we love it here because like it's different. But at the same time, there is still that business stuff that comes with it. But it's just a different vibe when you're here in Pittsburgh. And that's really like when I was listening to L. I'm like, yeah, you learned that lesson. Now, granted, at least you won in the sense of you got a ton of guaranteed money out of it, because you could have learned that lesson with no bag. And a lot of dudes that leave the Steelers organization, that's typically how they learn that lesson, with a lot less money. But at least for him, he has the money to make him feel good. But I'm just like, that's when
he feels it.
Yeah,
you like his career became a joke.
Yeah,
he became this journeyman. Went to the Ravens.
Seriously,
and the
bro.
Bucks and the Chiefs, and didn't even play. Like,
you let it become
that's
personal.
A bad look.
When it becomes personal, you no longer operate with good business sense. You no longer operate for what's best for everybody. Now you're starting to say, you know what, I'm gonna do whatever I can do to F you over. But in the long run, it hurts you more than it helps you. And that's just in life in general. When you talking, like, when you hear the revenge, if you go to get revenge, man, you better dig 2 grades and all that stuff, because it's like you get so focused on, I'm going to get back at you because you did this or because you're not budging, that you leave. And for him, man, it's a hard lesson to learn, but ultimately that is, what he learned from that.
I felt like his reasoning made sense at the time.
Yeah.
It definitely did. But he just caught the RB market at the wrong time, because this was after some of those big deals to like David Johnson and other players started to play out, and you're like, oh man, this is looking bad. So I understood why the Steelers were holding too.
Yeah,
because you saw when Le'Veon Bell sat out, James Conner made a Pro Bowl. Now the difference is Le'Veon Bell is one of the best running backs in the league. James Conner, good running back, but we felt that difference because James Conner's ball security cost us some games. Le'Veon Bell never fumbled the ball, but that's what you get from like a franchise RB1 like Bell. So you've said this before, both sides missed out on it, I think. At least in the short term. Because I don't know if the Steelers keep Bell around on that cap hit for 2020, 2021, anything like that. But, yeah, I think for 2018 and 2019, Steelers missed out. Because 2019, maybe Bell could have helped carry that offense with Mason and Duck. With that good
brought
defense.
that up multiple times when you think about just what that year was, especially with 7 going down. It's like,
because Connor was bad that year, and he was hurt all the time.
Right, but I'm just like, L. Bell, especially if we're talking then, that's still within that 2-year frame of the last time we saw him where he was dominant. you're still going to be having a way just more consistent lifeline for the younger quarterback where maybe you're not having to resort to. Remember, we were going Wildcat with Jalen Samuel. We talked about that. We talked about all the different things we would try to just come up with, switching the quarterbacks back and forth, all this other stuff. It's like, man, if you have an L. Bell, now you lean more on that.
Maybe you're throwing him at receiver sometimes and having Connor as the RB.
Absolutely. It would give you a lot more options, a lot more flexibility. But that's, when you allow it to get personal negotiations, and it's not easy to do. Being a dude that's been in negotiations multiple times, bro, it sucks. It is times when you're really, man, me and you have talked about this off record, but it's definitely times where you're just like, man, it can cause some tension within the organization, man. So, I get it. I do. But this is the business side of football, and, just a part of it. But I do like the fact that he's at a good place now where he's actually able to talk about it, because a lot of people, man, it takes them a long time. It takes them a long time to finally be able to come to grasp and publicly say these things, because amongst your guys, you could talk about this because we get that side of it. When you speak publicly, not everybody, especially from a fan perspective, is going to empathize with the business side. A lot of them just solely focus on, well, man, you could have won this. You could have been the greatest, this and that. And it's like, yeah, but context does matter. And I think for him to even be cool with even talking about it, like I said, man, I like that for him, man.